Okay, there we go. Hi, everybody. Good morning. Hey, Suzanne.
Hey, Tammy.
Hey, welcome, everybody. And thank you for joining us today on our first 2024 session of Multi-Cloud Happenings. We're really excited that you've joined us today. There's lots of great stuff going on to kick off the new year. And today, Suzanne and I are going to talk about introducing Oracle Database at Azure, in case you haven't heard about it. Uh, Here's your experts today. My name is Tammy Bednar, and I'm a product manager, and I focus on the Exadata database services and our base database service as well. And Suzanne is our main host today. So Suzanne, I'm going to say hi. Introduce yourself.
Thanks, Tammy. Hey, so my name's Suzanne Holiday. I think you know us both, hopefully, for those that have been following us for quite some time. For those who don't, I'm working with Tammy in Tammy's team, supporting the Oracle Exadata database service, base database service, and Cloud at Customer. And for the purpose of today, we're going to be focusing on Exadata database service. And I have multi-cloud specialism.
All right. So Suzanne, of course, we have to put the safe harbor statement in because, this is kind of a new service. And basically, this means that you can't write into a contract anything that Suzanne and I say because you can't trust PMs half the time. Just kidding. So anyway, just had to include that. All right. So today Suzanne's gonna kick us off and we're gonna talk about the solution overview. Then I'm going to talk to you briefly about our Exadata database service that's going to be located in this Oracle Database at Azure solution. And then Suzanne is going to finish us up and talk about persona and operational responsibilities, how you deploy this service, and some architecture so you can slides so you can kind of get an idea of how and where the service is located and kind of how the networking is set up. And then we're going to talk about where this is going to be located. Please do ask any questions in Q&A, and Suzanne will answer those as we go along in the presentation. And if you have, as I said, we'd love to have this as an interactive session, so please ask your questions and we will get at them. So why don't we go ahead and get started. So Suzanne, why don't you give us a good overview of this new solution?
Thank you very much, Tammy. So I'm just going to go back a little bit in time. So let's talk about why we're doing this and the value that we're bringing to our customers for actually getting together with Microsoft to offer this for you. So we have customers today on Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. We have our customers as well with on-premises applications and databases as well. And some of our customers have chosen for Microsoft as a strategic cloud provider. And sometimes we see our customers with their applications still on premises, and they're looking for a route forward because they want to obviously bring their applications on premises into Azure, but they want to choose the database that they trust to follow as well. So when we look at the best of both worlds, this is what we're trying to bring together to you for you as a customer. And, it's about giving our customers choice. You've got your trusted applications that you're familiar with, that you're used to, in terms of choices that you make in your preferred technologies, as well as what you look to in an Oracle database as well. Next slide, please. So when we cast our minds back to what we did back in 2019, this is where we forged a strategic partnership with Microsoft. And the first thing that we actually did to embark on this journey was to lay down an interconnect between both Microsoft Azure and also Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, with the idea of being able to connect the two together to enable applications in Azure, and as well as full stacks to interoperate with the applications and databases in Oracle Cloud Infrastructure too. So what we did last year was something that we announced back in September, and we recently went general availability, back on December the 13th. This is where we announced Oracle Database at Azure service. And what this is a very, very exciting juncture for us, because we're now delivering something completely new, which adds a complete new dimension to the partnership between Microsoft and Oracle. And what we decided to do was to get together with them to give our, like I said, our customers choice to enable us to place the Oracle Exadata hardware and the Exadata infrastructure into the actual Azure availability zones in the Azure data centers. And this gives this close proximity to enable applications that run in Azure, you know, a connectivity to the Oracle Exadata with such low latency, because we've now got everything placed together, and we're no longer going across two separate clouds. So in order to do this, we actually had to architect it, and we're going to go through that in our session today, and I'm going to go into the details of that. But ultimately, what we're making available to Azure applications is we're unlocking this high performance, high availability, and automated management of Oracle Exadata database with this superior performance, scalability, you know, the cloud tooling that we already have built in. And for the first time, RAC is available to run with Azure as well, which is groundbreaking in itself. And we've got this seamless integration with Azure services, like I said, giving you as a customer choice. So let's go through and have a look at what this means. If you can go to the next slide, please, Tammy. Thank you. So when we take a look at what customers are actually doing today and the application workloads that they're running, this is just really an example of what we're seeing. You know, this is migrating enterprise applications across everything like ERP, commerce, supply chain, or, you know, IoT workloads, analytics, you know, DevOps type kind of workloads. And this is where they're running in Azure, but they also want to still continue to use the Oracle database. And analytics, typical workloads that we would see would possibly be Power BI running, connecting to an Exadata database service as well, and Synapse and so forth. Next slide, please, Tammy. So let's take a high-level look at what we're giving you with this Oracle database at Azure. So the top tile depicts the fact that we're now calling this Oracle Database Azure, and you actually connect to it from your Azure portal. So it's actually native in Azure itself. And this is how we would then go in and start to deploy, and we're going to go through that later. But if we just take a quick look at, let's say, the business, the commercial benefits that we're offering, is that now, because of this partnership, we've decided the best way to do this is, because you're familiar with Microsoft, that you would actually deploy this from the Azure marketplace. And by doing so, you would get into a complete purchase flow, which takes you through from start to finish, all from the Azure marketplace, and it's one unified bill in the end. So nothing changes in the sense of Oracle Exadata database service. That is still the same database service, which Tammy's going to take us through shortly. And we still need the contract in place for Oracle Cloud Infrastructure to run there, as well as with Azure. But what you're getting this time is that the whole transaction and the sales process is handled transparently through the Azure marketplace. And you would still enter into, you know, your relationship with your sales rep within Oracle and be given a quote by them, but that quote will be submitted through this flow and presented to you here. And what this enables you to do is to burn down your existing Azure commitments, and Microsoft called this MAC. And you can actually purchase the Exadata database service through this Azure commitment burn down. And the usual benefits apply as well, like you usually get today with Exadata database service with respect to Oracle licenses. And that's, you know, we're offering you bring your own licenses or license included. And you're also entitled to your usual Oracle support rewards as well. Now, from a collaborative partnership perspective, these are the commercial things that we've put in place to make things easier for you. Another thing that we're doing is collaborative support model. So any time you would encounter an issue with the service, your first port of call is OCI, and it's raised through us. And then we do a triage process to determine if it's our issue, and if it's not, we do a transparent handover to Microsoft. So it enables you to run your workloads where you choose, and you're combining your Azure services with the Oracle Exadata Exadata database service. That is the database service that's available today. In future, we're looking at providing autonomous database service serverless as well. And all of this will be co-located in the Azure data center. So like I said before, you've got this most optimal latency where the application is running actually in your Azure data center with the Exadata database service as well as the hardware. So we're giving you this opportunity to migrate with proven tools and services, such as Oracle Zero Downtime Migration that you may be familiar with today with Oracle, and benefit from these, this smooth transition into the cloud and providing you a path forward with your Azure applications. So now I'm going to hand over to you, Tammy, and you're going to take us through how we're providing Exadata database service and how this is the same service. And Tammy's going to take us through the benefits of that. Thanks.
Thanks, Suzanne. Yes, in case some of you that are listening to this broadcast or this webcast and you haven't heard of the Exadata database service, let's start off with the platform first, which is the Exadata platform. The Exadata platform has been around for at least 15 years, I think, at this point, and it started out as an engineered system. And the design and architecture and the thoughtfulness that went behind it is that we want to make it the ideal database hardware platform. Be able to scale out, be able to optimize your database compute. Also included as part of this single bundle is smart networking and storage. And then, of course, the next one is the Database Aware System software. There's lots of unique algorithms, and I think over the next year or so, you'll see us put out some videos about all these unique algorithms and why this makes your database more performant, and it improves your analytics, and how you can consolidate lots of workloads onto a single platform, which reduces, with a single platform, reduces kind of some overhead maintenance of trying to manage several different hardware platforms and being able to manage all your databases on a single platform. And then finally, automated management. I've been around Oracle for lots of years, so hopefully I know some of you or I've met some of you over the years. And I know that human errors can cause big disruptions depending on what happens. I've done it myself where I've deleted a table, the wrong table in the wrong database, and that's really hard to recover from. But here's the most important part. The Exadata platform is available wherever you want to run your workload, whether it is on premises, which it's been there for 15 years, whether you want it at Oracle Cloud at Customer, whether you want it in the Oracle Public Cloud, and now so exciting in Oracle Database at Azure solution. So just as we said, as I mentioned, the Exadata Smart System software that gives you the ability to have very fast OLTP. We have scale out storage, we have RDMA. RDMA is kind of an important piece because it allows us to communicate between all the different storage components, but very, very efficiently. We have lots of shared memory in the storage servers. We have NVMe flash. It's really easy to scale out. And this is what I love about the cloud. If you guys have heard me talk about before, I love the elasticity of the cloud. It allows you to scale out and add resources where you need them, when you need them. No more t-shirt sizes. We're getting rid of t-shirt sizes, and it all depends on what kind of resources you need. Now, of course, the minimum configuration of an Exadata is 2 database server nodes and 3 storage nodes. We're going to take a look at those in just a second. When it comes to analytics, I know analytics is very important with our businesses today. Being able to take all this data that you capture from your sales and opportunities and be able to analyze it to make your business more competitive. So we have lots of algorithms around the analytics. And then from a consolidation point of view, being able to consolidate very many different types of databases, whether they're production, they're dev, they're test, and then being able to identify those resources that need to go against those all-important databases. So the Exadata database servers on dedicated infrastructure, that's the whole name. Yeah, it's a mouthful. So we call it ExaDBD-D for dedicated. The reason it's called dedicated infrastructure is because every little piece of hardware that is provisioned in this service belongs to you. You have full control over the database server nodes as well as the storage nodes. It runs the same experience if you run it on premises as in the cloud, means that we use Oracle Real Application Clusters for high availability out of the box. And it includes all your database options if you want to do license included or bring your own license. As Suzanne mentioned, you still have those opportunities or those choices for when you run the service as well. If you use applications today with Exadata on-premise, it works in the cloud as well. So here is the details of the infrastructure itself. This is the Exadata X9M generation. It consists of database servers and storage servers. Minimum configuration, 2 database servers, 3 storage servers. But it can grow whatever resources that you need, from 2 to 32 database servers, from 3 to 64 storage servers. So any kind of workload that you want to consolidate on a single Exadata system, we can handle it. So for each of those X9M database servers, you have an opportunity to use up to 126 maximum OCPUs. You don't pay for all those OCPUs on a database server. It all depends on the resources that you require. We have up to 1,390 gigabytes of memory, and then there's a 50 gigabit per second networking that is shared for your client connectivity as well as backups. Now, for each of the X9M storage servers, those are not just dumb storage servers. We actually have cores in there that do processing in the back end. Remember, I mentioned those unique algorithms. That's one of those cases where we can process a lot of data in the back end and then push forward to the database servers the result set that you're looking for. So there's 48 processor cores in each storage server, 1.5 terabytes of PMEM, 25.6 terabytes NVMe flash, and 63.6 terabytes of HDD usable storage. And you're probably going, oh, wow, there's tiered storage. How do I use it? You don't have to, because again, of those smart algorithms and a lot of the intelligence that's gone into this design is as you run your workload, Exadata will automatically store and put your data into PMEM and flash, because we know that you're accessing the fastest or that you need it the most often. So you don't need to do any kind of special coding or anything like that. We already can analyze your workload and then put the data where it needs to go. Now, when it comes to how it is managed in the public cloud, the Exadata in the public cloud, we call this a co-managed service. That's because Oracle manages part, and then the other part, we work with you together as a co-manager. On the bottom half, on the left-hand side, you can see we have the storage servers, the internal fabric, which is Rocky, by the way. We have database servers and the hypervisor. All of that, Oracle owns and manages that infrastructure. That means we apply patches, we apply security updates, we monitor the health of the storage servers, we make sure that it stays in good working order. Now, everything above that, the VMs where the database resides, the grid infrastructure, the database homes, the database version, and the data in the schema is owned and responsible for you. Now, I know that sounds like a lot, but Oracle will provide the patches and updates for your VM, which includes the operating system and the Exadata system software, as well as the database updates and GI updates. You just have to push the button or use Ansible or Terraform to apply those updates when you're ready for those updates to occur. So there's a lot of lower administration time and cost when you're using the Exadata in the public cloud. So for a lot of that automation that we continue to build, we have lots of more automation in the cloud as well. We have UIs, there's REST APIs, there's SDKs, CLI, Terraform, Ansible to automate a lot of the tasks. So we remove a lot of the manual operations and remove a lot of any kind of human error risk into those tasks. You can create the Exadata infrastructure in the clusters. You can schedule the infrastructure maintenance. You can scale out or up the additional OCPUs when your workload requires them. You can create database homes and databases. You can perform backup and recovery in an automated fashion as well. And when it comes to high availability, then you can enable Data Guard with your primary database. That's right, high availability. We know it's important for everybody. And hopefully you've heard about the maximum availability architecture blueprints that our team spends a lot of time in testing and providing to you to reduce the risk within your business. And this is kind of just an architecture picture or a high-level picture of the different kinds of key cloud technologies that we continue to use that you're familiar with today, like Active Data Guard, Golden Gate, Recovery Manager, Flashback, RAG, ASM, sharding in a distributed environment can all be used within our maximum availability architectures and blueprints to provide the level of high availability that your business requires. Okay, so that was a really fast overview, Suzanne, of Exadata Database Service. Now let's continue to find out how we can get this solution provisioned with our customers.
Thank you so much, Tammy. So this diagram here is just a depiction of like the different roles that we have, like the different personas. So you've got Oracle sales, as I mentioned earlier. Your relationship with your Oracle sales continues, and they have this ability to then work with the Microsoft Partner Center, which is where they're placing their quote into, and then the offer is configured to you and sent to you through the actual Microsoft Azure Marketplace. So like I said before, it's seamless end-to-end, one unified bill, one transaction purely through Microsoft Azure. And this is something that we've worked hard with Microsoft to make sure that it's a seamless process, making it easier for you as a joint customer. So then you'll be familiar, obviously, with Microsoft, but then on the Azure billing side, you'll have an Azure billing administrator. And what their role will be there for would be to go in and accept this offer. And this offer is what Microsoft call a private offer. And this is something that they actually, the way in which they actually work, and you'll be familiar with this if you're a customer already. And once completed, once the Azure Billing Administrator has completed this purchase offer and accepted it, then you as a customer can deploy, manage through the Azure portal. And like Tammy's also mentioned, we have the APIs through OCI that are then invoked through the Azure portal. And I'll talk about when and where in terms of what we're provisioning and how that happens. So the purchasing and onboarding tasks are one-time activities, and these are actually done through your Exadata Infrastructure Administrator, and that these would be infrequent activities. Management, of course, is ongoing. And the linking between the Azure and the OCI is a one-time process as well. So just to be clear, the Oracle Database at Azure supports new and existing OCI tenancies. And the Exadata infrastructure and Oracle database at Azure identities are managed also from the Azure consoles. However, the database, the container databases, the pluggable databases are managed from the OCI console. And I will talk about that a little bit more. We have identity as well, which is part of this whole onboarding process. We enable identity federation, leave that as your choice to enable, if you wish, to have this, single identity directory with Microsoft Entra ID. And what that means is that you can easily maintain Azure groups by federating. And what that does, it negates the need to for full-scale landing zones in OCI, as well as not needing to maintain both directories on the OCI and the Azure side, because you're only using one set of your Azure credentials. So let's now take a look at the deployment. So if you go ahead, please, Tammy, to the next section. Perfect. This is the part where I said I would elaborate a little bit more on what is done where. So when we're going to provision Exadata itself through the Azure portal, then we would do this by clicking on the Oracle Exadata icon, which actually showed you earlier. If you remember, there was a screen where we were talking about the benefits. There was a tile that showed the Oracle Database Azure icon, and that's what you would click on. And today, obviously, Exadata Database Service is the only service we offer. But in future, when we onboard Autonomous, we will have two separate sections within the UI where you would then go in and provision either service. So within Exadata, you would then enter your basic information. You go to deploy the Exadata infrastructure to start with. You choose, the Exadata infrastructure with the number of database servers and storage servers, as Tammy's already pointed out in the previous section, what's available. And then but another thing that we're offering as well at this very particular initial stage of provisioning the Exadata infrastructure is managing patching schedules. You can also specify as well. And then once you've done that, you can click ahead and go and provision. If you can click on the next slide, please, Tammy. So the next slide shows where we've got the ability to provision the Exadata VM cluster. And here, this is the next step, and this is always done through the Azure portal. So you don't have the ability to provision the Exadata infrastructure and the VM cluster from OCI. It's always done through the Azure portal. So these two steps are always here. And then at this point, you can, as we've spoken about before, both Tammy and I, we mentioned that you can do license included or bring your own license, and you can select that when you're actually creating the VM cluster. You allocate your VM cluster resources, your memory node storage, etc., and then you go ahead. And then in this particular part of the journey, you will also be selecting the VNets in which you will be deploying to as well, which I'll go over in the architecture section later. Next slide, please, Tammy. But it's at this point when we've actually deployed the Exadata infrastructure and the VM servers that we would then go to the OCI console, okay? And then to do your database creation and your database managed from your CDB and your PDB level, this is always administered through OCI. And, in the Azure VM cluster resources page, you would click the OCI database URL to then jump straight through. It's not like you have to separately log into OCI. It's already a punch out through from the Azure portal. And that enables you then to create the OCI console and create your CDBs and your PDBs.
Hey, Suzanne, I just want to mention here that we said we have, APIs and SDKs and things like that.
Yes.
So we are working on that. We'll get more information to you about how you can create database homes and databases using our OCI CLI from within Azure. So if you're not a console person, which we know that, we like to use the console because it's kind of pretty to show how things work.
It's easy to show, isn't it?
Yeah. But you can definitely use the UI from Azure, and we will be working on that information and get that out to you. Okay. Thanks, Suzanne. I just wanted to add
Thank you so much. And that goes, we're not going to talk about this today, but just on that subject, that actually dovetails nicely into automation as well, because we're fully Terraform enabled too. So you can actually deploy, and we've got, the Azure provider, the OCI provider, and you can deploy this as well through that. In addition to, working with the APIs and SDKs, as Tammy mentioned. I think important point to mention at this, on the OCI side of the house as well, is what we're doing is we're also configuring the automatic backups as well from OCI too. And I will go into that and like what works where in the architecture section later. In fact, that's now. So go ahead, please, Tammy, and I'll talk about this now. So we're going to talk about just the high-level architecture overview. And first, we're going to start off with a high-level architecture for a single AZ deployment. So looking at this architecture diagram, on the blue box in the Azure region on the left, you will see that we've got something new, which is the notion of an OCI child site, okay? And what we're depicting here is it's a single availability zone, and this will then connect through to the back end of OCI to a single availability domain as well. So let's go over the architecture here. So what do we mean by an OCI child site? This is actually contain the Exadata infrastructure and the hardware racks as well that are placed in the actual Azure data center, and is the Oracle Cloud infrastructure. So it actually is OCI, and it's managed between the Azure applications that reside in the VNets, and the OCI child side is encapsulated as one, okay? And then, like I said before, we have automatic backups that will run in OCI, and therefore the object storage, as you see on the very far right here, needs to be reached, and that is done through the OCI network that then can communicate to the control plane in OCI, and you'll see that we've got the concept of these client subnets here that are mirrored on both sides. And you will see on the right-hand side for the availability domain that we have a VCN, which contains both the client and the backup subnet together. Okay, so the reason why we've done this, like I mentioned before, is that what we're enabling for you as a customer is to receive the lowest possible latency, because we've got this, proximity. There's no proximity at all between the application and the Exadata hardware and the Exadata database service itself, which is contained in this OCI child site. Okay, so what you would do is you would choose which VNet to deploy the Exadata VM cluster. You choose the subnet for the client subnet. And this, you only need to choose one, you only just need to delegate one client subnet in this architecture. And in OCI, the VCN, like I mentioned before, mirrors the client and backup subnets and completes them and coexists in one VCN. And this obviously depicts the OCI region that you're connecting to. So the architecture works is that you have your availability zones in Microsoft Azure in that particular region, only deployed currently in Ashburn today. But we will go through the future regions that we're making available too. And therefore, the OCI region that it's coupled with in this case is also Ashburn too. Now, this coupling may change in future if, for example, we have situations where the Azure availability zones and the OCI region are not within close proximity, but this concept and the engineering remains the same. So the way in which the traffic connects over from the Azure region into the OCI region is, like I mentioned before, this OCI network. It is not a backbone. Therefore, we're not incurring any costs between the, the applications running and connecting to the Exadata database service contained in this child site in the Azure region over to any other auxiliary services that we connect to, for example, like object storage for backups. And we also place the OCI vault there as well and have our encryption keys placed there as well. So like I mentioned before, this has been engineered to provide you the most lowest latency and the best customer experience. Next slide, please, Tammy. So all those things, sorry, can you just skip back one? The multi-AZ deployment. I just wanted to say here that what we're doing is when, obviously you're familiar with Azure, we've got 3 AZs per region. And what we're doing today is we're deploying into 2 AZs into each of the Azure regions. So we're deploying the Exadata hardware into 2 AZs, and this enables them to have multiple AZ deployment. On all those principles, like I've just mentioned about, the fact that the data plane resides in Azure, the control plane for OCI remains in OCI, and the traffic between the two connects through the through the OCI network as well. I will go into backup and recovery later and talk about how that works from a region to region and how, let's say, ingress and egress costs are incurred when we're going over the regions as well. If you go to the next slide, please, Tammy. Okay, so that's this point here. So what we have here is we're depicting HADR within one region. So we have the primary and the standby in this particular diagram are in different AZs within the same region. And the application tier as well is regional at the AZ level. And we have data guard that passes, and that traffic passes through the OCI network as well, depicted going right through the middle here for the OCI ADs and VCN connectivity. So when we're talking about what's residing where, the Oracle Data Guard redo logs are shipped from the primary database to the standby database through the client subnet across the customer managed networks on the OCI infrastructure, which is this OCI managed network. And this is, when the database, in this case, is hosted in the same Oracle database at Azure AZ, and then we have the redo log shipment. It's going local to the Oracle database at Azure network hosted here, and routing uses the local peering, okay? If the standby database is hosted in the same region, but in different AZs, which is what we're actually depicting on this diagram, redo log shipment is via the parent OCI site to the standby parent to the Oracle database at Azure infrastructure, and the routing uses local peering groups as well. Okay, so when we go to the next slide, just next one, please, Tammy. When we go in across region, then this is something a little bit different, because we're actually replicating a primary in a particular AZ in one region with a matched region, obviously in OCI, then replicating across to a standby in a completely different region, okay? So this is where the application tier is regional and replicated. And for DR purposes, therefore, we have to ensure that we're very careful about the costs that are incurred, because what we see is if the database is hosted in a different Oracle database at Azure region, like it is here, then the redo log shipment is via the parent OCI site across to the standby parent site. And therefore, we are incurring outbound data transfer costs, because the traffic is going through is going across from one region to another and going across the OCI backbone there. And that's when we will incur the egress costs. However, we have very competitive pricing in OCI, and this is where we enable you to have the first 10 terabytes, which you incur free of charge. And that enables you to give you quite a lot of bandwidth before you actually start incurring data charges there.
And that's 10 terabytes per month.
That's correct. That's 10 terabytes per month. Thank you, Tammy. So this is the concept, really. So I think the main thing that we want to communicate here is that any traffic going across between the applications residing in Azure to the same region on OCI, whereby they're picking up, for example, the encryption keys or the backups going ahead to the storage, that incurs zero data charges whatsoever. But it's when we're actually going across region to region. And if, for example, as well, we start getting into VNet peering on the Azure side, we're not going to go through and do a deep dive on the networking today. That's something that we can do in future. But as soon as you start doing VNet peering on the Azure side, that will also incur the Azure VNet peering charges as well, which incur ingress and egress charges at both ends. Next slide, please, Tammy. So as I mentioned earlier, we have the ability to configure automatic and standalone backups here. And with the automatic backups, there's a maximum retention period, of 16 days. And you've got the standalone and the full backup for long-term backups as well. And you can use that retention. That can be done through the console in OCI. It can be configured as well as your OCI APIs and the CLI as well. And you've also got the ability to opt for doing a manual RMAN backup to the object storage as well, if you so wish to do so. However, if you're going to do that, you would need to have UCM universal credits as well in order to do that. Next slide, please, Tammy. So when we're just talking about migration, we just want to make clear that we're using the very same tools that we use today for migrating our databases on premises into the cloud and to Oracle Database at Azure. We would do this using Oracle Zero Downtime Migration Tool, which is simple to use, and it's free of charge software solution that we provide. And this enables you to automate your Oracle database migrations to the cloud. And like the slide depicts, we've got the ability to do this in a physical migration, which is a faster method, however, only available from Linux to Linux with the same database version. Or we could do logical migrations, which is more flexible, of course, and that enables you to have the cross-database versions as well as cross-platforms between AIX, Solaris, and Linux, as well as in-flight upgrades. So we'll probably do a session specific to HADR and migrations in future, where we'll go into this in more detail. This is just really to let you know that you can have, the usual migration tools, and this covers rack, rack one, single instance, and so forth, as far as the tooling goes. All right. So
and I should mention that if you want more information on ZDM, we should have put it on the slide and I forgot. Just go to say oracle.com/go/ZDM and you'll see more information about zero downtime migration. So we'll add that in there. So there you go.
Thank you. Okay. Good. Yeah, and it's free of charge, and it's a great tool. So it really takes away a lot of headaches for customers. So now we're going to talk about the interesting stuff, which you've all probably, I'm surprised we've not had any questions on this already. We had one question, by the way, Tammy, and I answered that. It was about just the existing database services available, and that's the Exadata database service. So let's talk about where Exadata database service with Oracle Database Azure is going to be available. So as I said, we went GA on the 13th of December last year, not that long ago, in Ashburn. So that's available today. And what we're going, so US East and the Canada Central is Canada Central, by the way, is Toronto's, as well as these European regions. So we're going to be expanding from Ashburn out to Canada, Toronto, UK South, France, Central, Germany West. And these are all going to take place, as well as Australia East within the Q1, calendar year Q1 of 2024, which is pretty imminent, really. And then the Q2 planned regions that we've got is the US Central. So this is the Iowa region. And then we've got South Central US, which is Texas as well, and Brazil South. That we're going to be deploying to as well. And like I said, we will have engineering solutions if we don't have immediate OCI regions readily available there. But that's something that we're engineering today and working on. Now, I think it's really important to mention as well, if you see regions that are not mentioned immediately, which there are a lot, of course, and that are very important to you as a customer, then Oracle and Microsoft, we're going to continue to add availability in more of these regions. And it's really important to point out that this Oracle database at Azure service has its own region roadmap. So it's not determined by anything that went on in the past between us and Microsoft. And therefore, if you're seeing a region that's not mentioned, what we do is we encourage you to share any requirements with us so we can add these additional regions, and also talk to Microsoft account team too, because any demand signals, they get this from you as the customer and us as well. So that's how we work to increase and add available regions to the roadmap. So to summarize, what is this service and the benefit that brings? We're delivering Exadata database service for the very first time on Exadata infrastructure in Microsoft Azure data centers. And like I mentioned earlier, this is really unlocking the very best features and the very best Oracle database performance, high availability, scalability, as well as rack, and your security posture for our Azure applications within close proximity at the lowest possible latency. Things to take away from today's session is it's easy to provision, it's low latency, it's native to the Azure portal, you've got all your familiar tools, you've got your ability to run your application workloads as you so choose, and you've got your commercial benefits with your Mac Azure commitment burn down, as well as you're leveraging your existing Oracle licenses, such as bring your own licenses, as well as license included. So I think we can go to Q&A, but Tammy, do you want to have any closing comments or anything before we do that?
Yeah, no, I want to say this is really exciting, and we're talking to lots of you and customers out there, and we'd like to hear from you on what you think about this new multi-cloud solution. And also, if you have any comments about some of the topics that you would like to hear about multi-cloud, we are more than welcome to take those on and have those in our next session. I don't think there's any last minute questions, Suzanne. So I do want to
Okay.
thank everybody for joining us today. We really appreciate it. And join us next month. It's so multi-cloud happenings is targeted, or we're planning on having it the last Tuesday of every month. So the next one will be at the end of February. I can't believe January's already gone. But we're glad you joined us today. So Suzanne, over to you.
Yeah.
Any comments?
Thank you very much. I just wanted to say thank you to the audience for joining us today. And replays are available as usual on the AskTom site.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank
See you
you.
next month. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.